This episode is brought to you by Global X. Since 2008, Global X ETFs has been committed to empowering investors with unexplored, intelligent solutions. Global X specializes in exchange-traded funds that offer exposure to the artificial intelligence ecosystem, including themes like data centers, robotics, semiconductors, and cloud computing. To learn more about Global X's entire suite of ETFs, from covered calls, fixed income, emerging markets, and more, visit globalxetfs.com.
Today's episode is brought to you by SalesCred Pro, the strategic resource for B2B sales that fortifies your credibility and accelerates the trust building needed for building successful business relationships. Get your free 7-day trial now at salescred.com/pro. Welcome to the Manage Smarter podcast with hosts C. Lee Smith and Audrey Strong. We're glad you're here for discussions on new ways to manage smarter, hire, develop, and retain talent, improve results, and propel team performance to new heights. This is the Manage Smarter podcast.
Our guest today is an expert, and Lee, what you said is, quote, what to do when things don't go according to plan in both her personal and professional lives. What a story she has, and what has really given that experience has driven her to just amazing heights. She's extraordinary.
And, the thing is that despite our best plan and even having a plan B and everything like that, life throws us curveballs. And whenever there's humans involved, it's like there's always things that we don't have control over, whatever that can throw us for a loop. And so, what we want to talk about today, and we've got a great person to talk about it, both from, as you say, personal and professional life, is really how to deal with that, how to react with that, and actually how to make that work for you. And we've got some other great topics in mind too, whatever, with this guest. I'm so excited about it.
She's got some great lessons that come out of that kind of adversity. So welcome to Manage Smarter, everyone. We're so glad you're here. My name is Audrey Strong. I'm the Senior Vice President of Communications here at Sales Fuel.
And I'm C. Lee Smith. I am the CEO and founder of Sales Fuel.
Okay, so international keynote speaker and best-selling author Dima Ghawi has 20 plus years experience as a global leader working for Fortune 100 companies, including IBM, Merrill Lynch, and Intuit, and another decade advising organizations and leaders to create courageous and inclusive work cultures. But it's the strength and resiliency that we refer to that she's shown in breaking free from years of cultural norms as a young girl growing up in Jordan that really show who she is and the inspiration she offers to even me personally, but all of us managers professionally. Dima, thank you for coming today. Great to talk to you.
Audrey. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for including me. Hello, C. Lee.
You can just call me Lee. That'd be great.
Okay.
So you were basically at the age of 19 put into an arranged marriage in Jordan with your family, and it just made you miserable. It's a condensed story, but that was the catalyst that started you on the path to where you are today.
Yeah, that's where you're right. That's where the story started. I was in Jordan, in Amman, the capital, and it is very common, at least it was very common at that time, where families, they want to introduce their kids to each other, and they want to keep the families and the traditions moving forward to the next generations. So yes, I got married very, very young when I was 20. And then we moved together to San Diego, California. And that's where a lot of things started changing.
Right. And you just said one day you just couldn't get out of bed and you were so depressed. And then how did you find the courage to break free and decide, no, I need to go my own way. I need to go get an MBA there in San Diego.
I know, it's like all over the place. So I went through deep depression, not because I was in an arranged marriage. That marriage was abusive. I was in the US alone. I was not allowed to talk to my mom more than 15 minutes a week, just on a Saturday. And he had to be next to me. I was not allowed to have friends. I was not allowed to leave our home without permission. Thank goodness the only thing I was allowed to do was to work on my bachelor's, because that was my condition to that marriage. Even though I was, it was arranged, but I still had, in a way, a say to ask that I wanted to complete my education. But that marriage turned out to be so abusive. And that's why I got to a place where I felt there was no hope. I felt stuck. And I knew that I could not leave, because if I left, that would result in horrible consequences that I was not allowed to deal with, or able to deal with. So imagine being in my mid-20s, not having money, not having connections, no family, nobody. And that's where I got into deep depression. As you mentioned, I woke up, I felt that there's no hope for the future. And that was the lowest point in my life, my entire life. But I believe that was the best point in my life as well, because during that day, I wanted other people to tell me what to do. So I broke the rules. I called my mom in Jordan, even though I wasn't allowed to. I couldn't get her. I tried to call my best friend. I couldn't get her. I tried to call my uncle. I couldn't get him. I just needed people to tell me how to live my life. And nobody was answering. They were just not available. And even though I felt horrible, but it turned out to be the best thing ever, because I believe I needed to learn to make my own decision.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to make my own choice. And I was on the floor crying, surrounded by tissues. And for the first time ever, a message I got was that maybe I have a choice. Maybe I have a choice not to accept this life, even though there will be consequences, but maybe I can take a step and deal with these consequences. It was the first time ever that I even considered that as an option.
I mean, there's definitely a bit of bravery that has to go with, deviating from the plan, and you did that. But I think that one of the best things is that, instead of, calling other people to tell you how to live your life, the person that you needed to call along was yourself.
Yes. And how many times we forget to do that, right? So if we look at our world right now, we're waiting for society or the boss or somebody to tell us what we're supposed to do, instead of just taking a moment and truly reflecting internally and realizing what is right for us as a person. Yes, there's going to be consequences, but why don't we train ourselves and be okay to deal with these consequences?
Right. So when you went and got the MBA, what sparked your interest in being a consultant, business coach to these huge companies and sharing your wisdom? What was the interest that took you to this line of work?
Yeah. So after I ended up escaping from that marriage, which resulted from that day. And at that time, I needed to recreate my life. I wanted to create a new life and discover who I am and discover my voice. And I just didn't know how to do any of that, like how to create a new story. So, but the only way I knew of is education, because I did complete my bachelor's during my marriage, and I started my MBA afterwards. So because there's something that I believe in, which is knowledge is light and ignorance is darkness. And I wanted to bring light into my life. So imagine at that time, I had like little skills, the education, and I got a job with IBM for their leadership development program. So that another thing in my life that absolutely changed everything for me, because that's where for the first time ever, I was seen as a leader and I was trained to be a leader. So I started working and managing global teams, traveling around the world, living around the world. I got to live in Japan and in South Africa. And I realized that a lot of the people I was working with in so many different roles, people I was managing, they were always telling me about their fears of making mistakes, their worries of being judged, and their aspiration for perfection, which is a lot of the things that I was dealing with. And that stopped me for many years from discovering who I truly was because I was more focused on satisfying everybody around me and being perfect and worrying about making mistakes instead of truly living the life that I wanted. So I started inspiring them and challenging them through my journey. And the results were so amazing, to a point, one day I decided, wow, I should be on my own. I should be doing this because I'm just so passionate about it. So, of course, like I hired coaches to help me with this journey and to help me understand this new part of my life, which is the entrepreneur. My background is a lot of leadership, supply chain management. I didn't have experience in sales and marketing. So like this whole new thing had to start, and I had to start learning about how to market myself. How do I understand my brand? How do I communicate it? How do I evolve it? Which was a whole new thing. And it was very scary. So that's how I got into being a consultant.
I got a couple questions along those lines. One is like, what's your biggest challenge when dealing with all these different people from different countries and different cultures and different time zones? And the follow-up question to that will be, what's your biggest challenge when dealing with a manager or a leader or whatever who doesn't do what you did or whatever, and basically they're a jerk and they cling to what they've always done, which is being a jerk, and and trying to get them to think differently.
Yeah. So let's go to the first question. I love working with people from different cultures. My biggest challenge is how people view time. Like some people are so late all the time, and culturally it's accepted. And I just cannot handle it. Specifically my team in India, I would tell them, okay, we're going to take a break. I want you back in 15 minutes. And I would have them write down the time they're supposed to come back. And they would still be half an
Still be
hour.
late.
Oh
Yeah.
my
They're
God,
still late.
I cannot. Like number
Yeah,
one
that's
pet
Audrey's
peeve.
pet peeve. That will never
Number
happen.
one pet peeve.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Dima.
Yeah, so that is one of the things I just cannot handle. And even though I understand that culturally it's accepted for these people to be late 15 minutes or half an hour, or sometimes, I'm not joking, like an hour.
Oh my God.
I just cannot deal with that. So that is the cultural one. The second question related to how to deal with people that did you say that what how did you call them, like
I cleaned it up and used the
Stuck in their
term jerk.
ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we were speaking privately, I would use a different term. But
yeah, so like how to deal with people that are jerks. The the real question is, why are we allowing these people to continue to stay in the workplace? And why do these people tend to continue to be promoted into senior leadership roles? That is the thing that's confusing for me. When we find individuals that are so toxic, they are selfish, they are not there to serve their team and help their team grow. Why are we keeping them? And what is it telling us about our culture, like overall corporate culture, that we're allowing this? But also, what shocks me all the time is when I see them continuing to get promoted. I don't know. There's just something about that. But now, in terms of me, what do I do with individuals? I try to understand what makes them the way they are. It's like, the iceberg. There's certain thing at the top that we see. And what we're seeing, okay, that person is a jerk. That person is horrible. But what is underneath the surface, the needs that are not met? Maybe this person needs attention. Maybe this person needs to be heard. Maybe this person has, who knows, childhood trauma.
past trauma, yeah.
Yeah. So I try to put myself in their situation to understand why they're acting a certain way. Why are they communicating a certain way? But also it's important with these individuals to set boundaries and to set limits. So if they're acting in a way that is not appropriate or being like totally difficult to deal with, is to help them understand without emotions, facts, what I am observing related to their behavior and what is the impact of that behavior. So if they're acting this way and it is impacting the culture, making some employees quit, helping them understand how their behavior is affecting the overall team without emotions.
All of those are good tips in reverse for the people listening to this episode as to what they should be doing if they are afraid to make mistakes. Like, do you have imposter syndrome? Do you have trauma? Start asking yourself these questions, right? As a way to improve your performance and break away from, being stuck.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, because many times you're right. Like that, when we talk about imposter syndrome, the like low self-worth, in the past, I used to think it's just me because of my story and my background. But then as I started managing teams globally, everybody has it to a certain degree, and not just women, people from different genders, they have it as well. Men may act like, they're strong and they're confident, but deep inside we all have that. But
count on
it. But the thing is, what is it, what is this imposter syndrome stopping us from? And many times we realize it's stopping us from starting our businesses, like new businesses, following our passion, even taking care of ourselves, because our low self-worth, we end up overworking ourselves and not giving ourselves permission to be present, to have fun, to be playful. So all of that. And at the end of the day, it's a matter of understanding, where is it coming from? What is the voice in our head that is stopping us from truly being ourselves, appreciating ourselves, and being okay to make a mistake and to learn from it? And, I realize it's not fun making mistakes. I realize it's not good at dealing with consequences. I've been dealing with consequences for many, many, many years. But at the same time, is what can we do in order to prepare ourselves for these consequences, and at the same time help other people that make mistakes, instead of judging them, instead of looking down at them. It is helping them to be okay, to that the more we judge other people, we're judging ourselves as well.
Well, then that also goes to the culture. Because sometimes, the people that I consult with is like, when I hear fear of failure, it's really fear of being fired. And so the need to have an environment that is where you have psychological safety, and it's okay that, if you make a mistake, unless it's really, really huge or something like that, you're not going to be fired for it. Hey, we tried, and we knew that there's a bit of risk going into this. But there are just people that constantly live in fear of, if I make this mistake, if I say this thing to the wrong person or whatever, I'm going to get fired. So therefore, I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. You're right. It does go back to the culture. Yeah, Audrey.
I think those are great tips. Another tip is about your definition of what a leader is. So everybody put into YouTube, Dima Ghawi, Mount Fuji. And you give a very eloquent, beautiful explanation of this ill-fated team building exercise in Japan. You and you are reporting up. So your seat was, what was CEO?
Well, he was a senior leader.
Okay.
And both of us were assignees from the US. Yeah.
Yeah. So the whole idea is I'm trying to condense it, but listen to the whole story. It's wonderful the way you told it. You're going up Mount Fuji. You're supposed to stop at certain places, sleep a couple hours, go to a cabin where you can actually eat something, and then ascend to the top, correct?
Yes.
So what happened?
So it was supposed to be a team building event.
Yeah.
And my manager, who was an assignee, just like myself, he wanted to climb Mount Fuji, and he thought it would be fun for all of us to climb together. So he planned it. He had the map, he had the reservations, he had everything. When we got to the mountain, he decided that he wanted to make it a race and to see who's going to get to the top of the mountain first. So he left us behind, and he started his hike, and he started being so fast, and he wanted to get to the top of the mountain first. And to us, we were so shocked, even though we initially had 30 employees that were interested in the hike. We ended with 4. So it was my manager, myself, and 2 other Japanese team members. And imagine, like, I was the only woman with these 3 men. And I'm like, I just don't want to climb this mountain anymore. I just couldn't go back. I couldn't go back to Tokyo. So we started the hike, and I was so amazed with my other team members. So the other 2 Japanese team members, they kept us together, the 3 of us, because our boss was gone. Even though they don't have the title of a leader, they made sure that we stayed safe. We took one step at a time. Even though when I'm tired, they would help carry my bag, which to me, that is a leader. A leader is a person who helps the team get to the top step by step. Sometimes we're pushing the team forward. Sometimes we're walking to their side, but not the one who leaves the team behind just to get to the top first. And that's what our manager was. And when I think about our corporate world, how many times individuals want to get into leadership just because they want to get to the top? They're not taking care of their team. They're not connecting with their team. They're not understanding what do they need? How can I get the best out of them? Maybe the team is challenged and going a little slow. What do we need to do as leaders? So this experience, I absolutely love it, because it was a team building event that I will never ever do again. But at this time, it represents a lot of the things that I see in our corporate world, and the things that we need to be so intentional in changing.
Well, that's a story of both a boss who's a jerk and a story of, things not going according to the original plan, that you guys then regroup, the three of you, whatever, and you basically chose a different plan based off of the changing conditions, and the fact that you no longer had the boss, leading you up the mountain and sticking to the original plan, and, not really communicating all that well. And so, I mean, I applaud you for that. I mean, you definitely learned something from it, right?
Yes, I did. I absolutely did. Well, the lesson is never climb Mount Fuji again.
The other 26 people that copped out, they were the smart ones. No, actually, they weren't, because you learned a lot up there.
Yeah,
We've got
and
about...
the interesting thing is we had very low team morale in Tokyo.
Oh.
So our team was so low in the morale, and I was new as an assignee. But now, at that time, I understood why we had a low team morale, because if the manager is not intentional in staying connected with the team all along, and the manager is just focused on getting to the top, that's why we end up having bad culture. That's why we end up having people feeling excluded. We end up losing the great talent. That's why it happens. So, and the thing is, after his assignment was completed in Japan and he moved back to the US, he got promoted again. So it is, as individuals in corporations or in any organization, as you're working on making a decision of who you're going to be promoting, we need to slow down, and we need to think about not the most aggressive, direct person that should be promoted. Who are we promoting that's really nurturing the culture that we want to create?
I heard you use the term
up is a whole other episode, falling up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I heard you use the term exclusion, so that leads me to think of inclusion. I'm going to take a risk here. I'm going to ask you a question. I hope that you're comfortable answering it. It's like, what advice would, as a Middle Easterner that is now in the United States, have you found inclusion in any way, shape, or form to be a challenge? And what advice would you give to other Middle Easterners who might be feeling the same thing?
Yeah. So are you asking me as a Middle Eastern woman, when I first moved to the US and the culture shock that I experienced?
Yeah. And it's, again, do you still experience anything like that from, a different culture, that, sometimes doesn't understand the Middle Eastern culture? And, and there might be other people going through the same thing.
Yeah. So absolutely. Yes. When I first moved to the US, I did feel excluded, and not because of what people around me did. It was a lot of things that we talked about earlier. My self-worth was very low, so I was very uncomfortable to approach people and to truly be myself. I was always worried of being judged. But at the same time, many times we have assumptions about other cultures. So as a Middle Eastern woman, I had an assumption about Americans, but when I started learning about who they are and how they live, I'm like, I love it. Like, all my assumptions were so wrong. So yes, and I continued to deal with a culture shock and feeling excluded every time I moved to a new country or worked with a different culture. But at the end of the day, what you asked about my advice is, first one, have fun with it. Many times we become so intimidated, and we're worried about how we're interacting with others. We're worried of making mistakes and offending other people. of course, do your research, but have fun with it. There's just so many beautiful things as we're interacting with people from other cultures, learning about their traditions, learning about their stories and experiences. That is one. The other one is slow down and watch your biases and assumptions about these other cultures. Because many times, maybe the media put that in our head, or maybe politicians put that in our heads to keep us divided, and get to know the people at an individual level. Because the more I do that, I realize we all have similar aspirations. We have similar hopes and dreams. We all want peace. We all want to feel healthy. We want our families to be taken care of. So even though we may be dressed in a different way, our skin color may be different, we may be eating in a different way with chopsticks instead of with a knife and spoon, but at the end of the day, we all have a lot of similar things. And why don't we focus on the things that are similar to unite us instead of looking the things that are different and use that to judge others?
That's lovely. Well, Dima, your website is dimaghawi.com. I'm going to spell it for the listeners. It's DIMAGHAWI. If you'd like to connect her, just go to the website and ping you through there?
Yes, I would love to be connected with our listeners and would love to answer any questions they got.
Well, this has been a very interesting conversation. I would like to have you back for the Falling Up episode.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you why, because when I've seen that happen over my long career, it has absolutely made my hair almost burst, spontaneously combust into flames, seeing the people that fall up somehow. And it's very deflating for managers and people that are trying to play by the rules. And I don't like the nice guys finish last kind of thought. Yes. So I hope you'll come back.
That's a preview of a future show.
It was great having you.
I would love it.
Thanks, Dima.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend on iTunes, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more great information at salesfuel.com.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.